right, we're live, Chris. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining our LinkedIn Live today. I'm Danielle Ross, and I'm really excited to be here with our new sales manager at DuroVac, Mr. Chris Braun. Chris comes to us with nearly 2 decades of experience in heavy industry and industrial housekeeping, and he's here to share some insights and topics that don't always get the spotlight they deserve. Because let's be honest, housekeeping really sucks at times. So had to throw in a little vacuum joke. But one of the things that I'm really excited about having this conversation with Chris about is, we just instantly meshed when we first started talking, because we have a very unique experience that we both sold industrial vacuums and industrial valves and at one point for the same company, just at different times. So we had a lot in common. And I think today it's really important that we share some experiences and shed a little bit of light on industrial housekeeping and kind of take some of the mystery out of it. So I think we can dive in, and if there's any questions, people can drop them in the chat. Everybody will be able to see them. And certainly you can always visit us at www.durovac.com. Go right to our contact buttons. You can send us any questions that you might have, and somebody from our sales team, Chris, myself, or any of our other regional sales managers will reach back out to you. So that said, I wanted to sweep through these questions today, but Chris insisted that we vacuum through them. So come on, we got to make it funny, Chris.
There you go.
I guess we'll start with the first question I had. When we talk about industrial housekeeping in a plant, what is an area that's often overlooked when it comes to it? Where do you think plants really should start to focus on, and why does it matter? And when people often assume housekeeping just means sweeping up dust, but we know there's way more to it. So what do you think?
I'd say probably the biggest place or avenue that's overlooked is utilizing vacuums in the health and safety arena. More daily use, more preventative use can save plants in a lot of aspects. It can save on insurance claims, injuries, also saves on maintenance, unforeseen items that prematurely wear due to heat, exposure to materials that wouldn't normally be there, etc. So I would say probably the use of vacuums in health and safety for our industries.
Okay. And I know, probably you can talk a little bit about this. I know one of the things that I encounter oftentimes when I go into facilities is they talk about, no, they use shop vacs. So whether they're, high-end shop vacs that they get at, Lowe's, Home Depot, or, repair shop, anywhere along those lines, these are hundreds of dollars for these hunks of plastic. And I hear the same things, or I see them when I'm in facilities, dust blowing out the side. And you can ask that question, how many of these do you go through a month? Let me guess, your hoses pop off a lot, right? Or you look at these filters and they're like a block of concrete. What is something that, when it comes to using just standard shop vacs, what are other, options that our customers have,
I would say probably the biggest option are continuous duty units. They're going to be a step up from your regular shop vac. As you mentioned, they are going to have provisions to lock hoses in. They're going to have a lot more filtration capability and also the horsepower that you need to move the material. Probably the biggest difference is the pump source in what is used over a shop vac. We're using continuous duty blowers, pumps, and motors, and they're using very intermittent duty items. Shop vacs were more designed for getting up Saturday morning and cleaning out the inside of your car for 20 minutes and putting it back away for a month. In those applications, they see a use or a life cycle of 100 hours or so if they're lucky, and then they're basically just ending up in the dumpsters.
Yeah, and that's no good for anybody. Talk a little bit about, Chris, one of the things that I notice is, people think that, when you're vacuuming, that you're collecting all this dust, but there's still this air that's still the fugitive air that's going back into these systems, and things that are escaping from these low-end vacuums, or things that are really more for commercial use, or maybe like a step above that home garage use. And, I always liken it when I'm talking to people about, it's kind of like your air conditioner is running, so it cools down your room, but if your window's open, it's not as cool as it could be, right? So when we talk about these things and we think about customers saying yeah, but we're shop vacuuming, or yeah, but we're brushing, we're sweeping these things, so we're getting most of it. But what about the other, not most of it, the other part that's not being captured? What does that do for employees, when you're talking about health and safety?
That is where the respiratory concerns come in. That's things where silica exposure and those sort of things, without the proper filtration set in front of the blower, we are not going to stop any of those hazardous items from being reintroduced into the air. And even worse, we're going to reintroduce them with pressure and flow behind it. So we're going to, much like using compressed air to blow down, which I know we'll get into in a little bit, we're just going to spread the product around a little more. So the area we might have cleaned looked a little better, but we just moved it throughout the plant.
Exactly. So when you're talking a little bit about that, we hear a lot about people relying on compressed air. So aside from the compliance issue of NFPA that they don't want it, to be blown, you want it to be sucked instead. Let's be real. Sometimes it's just simply moving dust from point A to point B. That it's not actually doing anything to extract it from the air. So tell us a little bit about, how, when it comes to safety and efficiency, like other issues with using compressed air.
I would say probably the biggest issue with using compressed air is the displacement of hazardous materials. Most of these places are handling, or in part of their process, are handling a hazardous ingredient. When we use a blowdown procedure, we are literally just spreading and mixing those. We can cause a multitude of reactions, whether it be chemical, pyrophoric, etc., and worse. We are now re-entering all of these contaminants into our airstream. So all of our employees are going to breathe them, maybe not even the people in the actual working environment. So I would say that is probably the biggest effect that those would have.
And this kind of goes along these lines, and it's not exactly one of the questions that we were going to discuss, but I know you're prepared to handle it. When we talk about like return on investment, and people think that like sweeping is free because you already have a guy or gal on the site who's doing it, and they're looking at an expense of an industrial vacuum of maybe $30,000 to $50,000. I oftentimes, it's hard to justify that upfront cost, but then you think about the fact that you've got this guy or gal, and I hear oftentimes in plants, they're spending, hours a day doing this. What is that, what kind of ROI can you build on why it makes sense to explore vacuums aside from the safety reasons of the respiratory, but the backbreaking labor type side?
It's a great question. So I'll use an example. People that handle steel shot or grit, whether you're abrading surfaces, steel plates, etc., the steel grit or shot ends up everywhere. There's usually someone that would be shoveling or brooming and then shoveling this material, and you end up with a multitude of variants of materials. You end up with your steel shot, and you also end up with a fine dust that was actually abraded off the material. This usually unfolds into a multiple payback scenario. First being health and safety. We reduce the amount of back injuries and slip and falls in that area by keeping the surfaces clean, and we are now moving this heavy steel shot with a vacuum. We also reduce the amount of time that it would take to clean the said area. So if typically about 4 hours to broom and then shovel about 2,500 pounds of steel shot from, say, around a wheel abrader or a blasting booth, would be reduced down to, say, 30 to 45 minutes to collect the same 2,000-pound drum. And as a byproduct, we are also collecting the ultra fine stuff, the stuff that would have normally been left behind by the broom and then found by the guy with the air wand.
Absolutely. So when we talk about some of the misconceptions about dust and debris management, like over the years, I'm sure we both have heard it, but some wild takes on dust management. You hear things like, a little dust never hurts anybody. It's just dirt. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you run into in the field?
I would say the biggest misconception is that daily housekeeping is ineffective. Daily housekeeping literally would prevent probably about 90% of the unknown maintenance issues out there with equipment. Usually these outside sources affect the functionality and longevity of equipment such as bearings, motors, gears. Any type of surface that moves is basically going to have an effect on it. And these are all unforeseen items that have a great effect on how your plant runs, considering this is the process that we're all coming to the plant to do.
Yeah, I can speak firsthand to that. I've got a treadmill that I keep in my garage. And let's just say I didn't do a lot of preventative maintenance on daily housekeeping. The garage is dusty and whatnot. And I keep getting an E9 error because I'm sure the belt has to be taken apart and everything cleaned. Where if I just kept the area around it a little bit cleaner from all the dust coming in from our cars, I'm sure my treadmill wouldn't be giving me this error right now.
Correct.
So when we're talking things like compliance with OSHA and NFPA standards, like housekeeping doesn't always seem glamorous, but it does play a huge role in meeting these standards. Can you explain a little bit how like these rate strategies can actually prevent issues before they become violations?
Absolutely. If you implemented daily housekeeping, you could actually reduce the classification or the electrical classification in an area in which the operation is taking place. This results in less expensive equipment, easier to use equipment, and also a safer workplace for your employees. So it is an all-around win-win, no matter how you look at it.
Absolutely. And when we talk a little bit about, one of the things when you're looking for, and even outside of DuroVac, but you're looking for a partner to partner with, like, what are the things that you look for that's important, that you really want? I mean, I would say you want to build value with the fact that you want a supplier who understands these regulations, right? And understands that they're meeting what your plant is going to need from that, technical compliance standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah, we need to partner up with people who are very involved in our industry. The rules and regulations change daily, and honestly, how we handle and how we build the equipment for the customers is changing daily. More and more projects we are seeing, they want very custom engineer driven solutions, which we strive to do at DuroVac, but there's not a lot of people out there that do just vacuuming. There are a lot of companies out there that provide a multitude of services, and vacuuming just so happens to fit in their envelope of scope. However, here at DuroVac, that is all we do. So.
Right. And I mean, we both hear it all the time from customers in the field, or for, just having these, let's call them, bar chats with somebody about what we do, that they believe that vacuum is the same as dust collection. That they're the same things, and air handling systems are exactly the same, and they don't understand between low vac and high vac. So I mean, just the fact that you can be a resource to people to help them, just educate them, right? Like that, we'd probably advise anybody before they're looking to come to us or another vacuum company or even a dust collection company, that you want to be able to make sure you truly understand what your application is and what sort of equipment that you need for it.
Correct. Exactly. Some of our best partners are actually dust collection manufacturers, because we do not build dust collectors. Dust collectors collect ambient dust out of the airstream. We remove product off of the flats and surfaces that is already settled. One of our RSMs has come up with a cute little term, basically, call us when your dust settles.
I like that. See, so now you've got the cheesy jokes in here too, Chris. It's not just me,
There you go.
Yeah. So if you were thinking, I mean, you've got 20 years in the industry, which is weird because you're only like 25 right now. So you started when you're about 5. But like looking ahead, like the new technology or changing in safety expectations, like what sort of trends do you see shaping the future of industrial vacuuming, and like the technology and like leveraging technologies that are already available, or, just even plant technologies of how we can integrate these things?
Probably in the last 5 years, we have seen more and more integration with plant processes. So instead of just being a vacuum, now, as mentioned previously, we are collecting the steel shot off the floor, but we can directly put that steel shot back into that receiver where the end user would have been putting it to refill the machine. So now we have eliminated a multi-step process, and we have also eliminated the health and safety hazard of removing the material and then re-entering it back into the machine. So the ROI is spread across multitude of divisions inside the same plant. And the use of the vacuum is now housekeeping, it's now health and safety, as well as a part of the system process for keeping the machine full of the material.
Yeah, and I think especially going back to that health and safety aspect, I know, you and I both came from the foundry industry for some time, that one of the best advocates we had for some of these processes was the guys who worked in our foundry 40 years ago. And when I had a lot of younger kids that were coming in, didn't understand why they needed respirators and hearing protection and all these things. And we literally had a gentleman come in who just wanted to tour the foundry because he hadn't been there in a long time, and took off his boot to show that he was missing 3 toes from when not wearing steel toe boots, and something fell on his foot. And then said that, he got his first hearing aid when he was 42 years old. And that was because for years and years and years, he's around this equipment that doesn't seem so loud. So I think it really sheds light to the fact that, it's more than just vacuuming, and it's more than just even the housekeeping. It really is keeping the employees safe. And there's always the adage that, your employees are your number one, asset to the company. And it's true, because for any business, whether you're in cement, whether you're in mining, whether you're in, materials of construction, pharmaceuticals, like those businesses don't move forward. There's only so much we can do with automations and robotics. We really need people. And if our people aren't safe, there's a cost to that, aside from the fact that they're not going home safe to their families. Like, it's a huge cost, financially, to, for health insurance costs, for lost time reportables, et cetera. So, I think what I've seen, at least, and I'm sure you have as well, is that more projects are being funded because of the fact that it's a health and safety initiative.
Correct. Yeah, I would say probably honestly about a 50% shift in our requests have come from a health and safety derivative over a maintenance or just regular production need.
Yeah. And, I know we kind of thought we'd finish this up within about 20 minutes or so. We still have a little bit more time. Is there anything on like industrial vacuuming or housekeeping that you think is important that you want to share, or you want to share a little bit about kind of our stance on planned obsolescence? Like,
Yeah, I would say I'll just brief real quick. So here at DuroVac, we build a wide range of everything from housekeeping style of vacuums to anything that you can move tons of material with. We strive to custom build and design every product for each individual job to make sure that you get exactly what you need. So many manufacturers out there now have a set product line, and basically they say, here, this is what you get. Here at DuroVac, we try and listen. I would say that's what we do differently from anyone else. We like to listen, and we also like to integrate. So with those two things moving forward, the integration helps the customers with a quicker ROI, and also, like we already touched on, a safer, healthier work environment. I would say that is probably the things that we are striving to continue to grow here more than anything.
yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we do, aside from, or what even other companies may do, but I think we do it better, obviously, is that we really know the information we need to turn around a quotation. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. We really have those 8 questions that we ask, like, what is the material? How do you want to actuate this? Is it propane, diesel? Is it, 3-phase power? Is it single-phase power? How do you want to collect the material? What are you going to do with the material? What is the size of the material? And, by asking just a few short questions, you and I can turn around quotations in a day. Within hours, we can get back to the customer at a very high level. And, I think customers are often surprised too. They think of the 1970s and 80s when every residential home had some sort of central vacuum system. And they think it's this like crazy expensive, like non-necessity they don't need. And this, like, they could just use this shop vac. But when we start to explain to them the cost of these things, that they're not, I think you were just sharing with me the other day about one of the plants that we were in, the dust collection system is $15 million. I think any industrial vacuum company would be happy to sell a $15 million vacuum. But the reality is, we're looking generally at, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50,000, the cost of less than one employee at a facility. So, we have affordable options, and we can work within people's budgets. And, I think one of the things that's interesting, and, a lot of people don't give enough light to, and maybe you can talk on this for a minute, is the fact that a lot of people have that fear by paralysis, right? They might see like, hey, if we want to do best case scenario, the best solution that we can get, doing all things, all the piping network, everything is going to cost us $200,000. It's not funded. It's not a capital improvement project. But what they're forgetting is you can start to piecemeal these projects, that you can start somewhere, and starting somewhere to do some sort of industrial housekeeping not only is the right thing to do from an ethical standpoint for your employees, but also it just starts moving the process that much further. So, talk a little about how we can kind of triage in these scenarios.
Exactly. So one way, if a budget does not allocate for the whole project to take place at one time, there are a multitude of ways we could tackle it. Probably the first and best way is to implement the piece of equipment. We might have a portable option for them that they could get around having a tubing network installed right off the bat. That would enable them to still implement a cleaning solution, come up with a process, and enact the actual purpose of it, and see the benefits right away while they take their time to get the tubing network put in. A lot of the times, this is also a best practice because they find that where they thought they wanted the drop and they were going to use it the most is probably actually one of the least used places. And actually, we need something over here instead. And then probably the second part that we see is so many customers buy a unit with one intention, and then they find 5 other use points behind it. I would say those are probably the 2 biggest things that people could take from this is when they're looking at that cost. Let's see where else we can apply it, because we may be able to spread that cost across 5 different areas of the plant. Because let's just be real, we're probably not vacuuming 10 hours a day. So we can share that cost across the board and also share it with health and safety, and we can get everything that they would need in a year's time in a budget versus, say, buying it all at once.
Yeah, I think that's something that I often pitch to customers when I'm on site, is that when you buy our portable units, they can act as small centrals, and they kind of give you that, I'll edit it since we're live, but the oh dang factor of, the CEO is coming in for a company tour, you have a company picnic. I've seen people disconnect from a piping unit, wheel this out to a parking lot, and they're vacuuming up mulch, gravel, etc. Having lived in the Northeast, we know how rock salt is terrible in every entryway or in company vehicles. They're unplugging it, they're moving it over, they're vacuuming entryways, rugs to get up rock salt. So like you said, there's so many other purposes that they find. And what I've often found when I'm on site for startups is that it's a kind of that unboxing effect, that Christmas morning that these people start using it, and when they see how powerful it is, and let's be honest, we all love things that are going to make our life easier, right? It makes us happy to have our job made easier suddenly and have a little more automations and things that are helpful for us. And you just see these people go wild, like they're trying to vacuum up things. It's almost like a challenge of like, how clean can we get this? Where else can we use it? And looking to the ceilings, looking to the floors, and suddenly they're excited about cleaning. I mean, I know if I could get my kids excited about cleaning, even 5 years in the vacuum industry, they're not as excited, but I often joke with them, I'm going to get a power lift in here and just suck up all the Legos so I can stop stepping on them.
I was going to say, we get you a central vac and they might change their mind.
Yeah, they might. You never know. Anything else you want to share with us today, Chris, then?
No, I think it's been a good start. We'll be doing a couple more of these. We'll get a little more technical, and then we'll have some product line introductions. But I think this was a great start for the morning.
Awesome. I really appreciate your insights today. I think it's been really valuable. And for those of you who are watching, if it's helpful, don't forget to follow DuroVac here on LinkedIn. And you'll be in the know for more conversations like this. And if there's something that we didn't cover today, you have specific questions about, we promise no high pressure sales pitch. You can reach out to us via email, text, phone call, Teams meetings, and we'll set things up for you.
Perfect. Thank you for this morning.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.